Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Effect podcast. This is episode number 3, part 2, featuring lawyer extraordinaire Tyler Hortie. And as you recall, Tyler is one of the partners at Cohen Hiley Law Firm here in town in Kitchener. So as promised at the end of part 1, Tyler will be talking today a little bit about title insurance and how to make sure someone doesn't refinance your house out from under you. His first vacation when he had his first major deals going on and why you probably shouldn't leave your phone off. And finally, one thing you do not want to find when you first move into your home and maybe how to avoid it. Anyway, off to the interview featuring Tyler. Enjoy!
Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
Oh, yeah. All right, explain this one to me. Because, I think going back probably a few months now, there was something on CP24 there about a Brampton couple who didn't have title insurance, and something went horribly wrong. I know title insurance. I know, when I did my stuff with you, we signed up for it, whatever, $400 or $500. But why title insurance? Why do we need that?
So, that's a really good question. Title insurance is, I don't want to say it's newer, but...
it is a newer thing.
Well, 25 years.
That's newer.
It's newer. Back in the good old days, before title insurance, if you wanted to buy a house, the first thing you had to do before you closed was get a survey done to make sure that you knew what you were buying. Surveys cost, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 these days, and they take time, and no one wants to wait for a survey.
So the client would actually
the buyer
have to
would get a survey done before the deal closed.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and
I've just now showed my age, but anyway,
and if there were any issues on the survey, then the buyer's lawyer and the seller's lawyer would have to sort it out, and that could cause significant delays to closing and significant cost. And so title insurance came in and said, you know what? We can offer a solution here. And so title insurance will cover a purchaser for any issues an up-to-date survey would disclose. It also replaces the need for the buyer's lawyer to do a lot of off-title searches, building and zoning for single-family homes, fire file search, outstanding work orders or deficiency notices.
That's a big one.
So those cost money. That gets passed through to the buyer. They take time to return, and if you want to close a deal in 2 weeks, you're not going to have the results. And sometimes the answers aren't accurate.
Oh, jeez.
So title insurance replaces the need for that. So if you buy a home with title insurance and get an owner's policy, the premium you pay with the lawyer is the only premium you'll pay for that policy for as long as you own the home.
So if my pool was installed not by zone, it was illegally done, they didn't get permits, I'm covered.
That's not fair, Stephen.
So I have a home with a pool, and he closed on it for me. So this is where that's not fair came in.
No, well, it's not fair because it doesn't. If they had a permit and there were outstanding work orders and it was never closed, title insurance would cover it, because if you had ordered the searches, you would have found out about it.
Oh.
But if they never applied for a permit and they did a bunch of work and they did a stinky job, and you only found out about it after you closed, I don't know if title insurance would cover you, because there would have been no way for anybody to know about it, save for maybe your home inspector. And that may be more of an issue for your home inspector at that point.
Peter, I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
Because, Mr. Blackwell did that, so we all know Peter, so hopefully that got done.
So that's the trick, is that sometimes title, and again, I've done a few title insurance claims lately, and every case is a little bit different, and every title insurer is a little different.
So a fence goes up. So I moved into the house, brand new fence is there already, and it's not on the property line.
So they won't pay to move a fence 3 inches.
Okay.
But if you buy a property thinking that your backyard extends down to the river, and then you realize after closing that technically the lot line ends at the end of your deck. And
this happened in Edmonton. Was it Edmonton?
I'm not sure. The seller represented that they owned the property. Then title insurance would either acquire the property to get the buyer what they expected to purchase and what the seller represented they were selling, or compensate the buyer for the loss of the property, depending on what was cheaper for the title insurer.
Yeah, this did happen. That's right.
So there, I mean, and it's insurance, and so it can be complicated. The policy's 12 or 13 pages.
Wow.
And sometimes you have an idea if there's going to be coverage, and you make a claim just in case, and you're surprised there's coverage. And sometimes you make a claim thinking that there's going to be coverage, and you get denied. And we work with our clients to try and ensure that they get covered for issues whenever the policy says so. It's not a magic wand that you wave to fix everything, but I would never buy a place without title insurance. I think it's great. The cost, compared to just a survey is insignificant, and it also often includes a lender's policy of title insurance for the bank.
Oh, okay, that's
because
good.
The bank will either require a survey or title insurance. And why survey for $1,500 when you can title insure for essentially an extra $100?
Of course.
And that lender's policy is good for only as long as you own the home. And if you refinance and do a new mortgage, then a new lender's policy for that new lender for the amount of that mortgage will have to be issued. And right now it's $110 to $150 depending. Sometimes more on the value of the mortgage, what's insured. But we have great partners that we work with Chicago Title, First Canadian Title, Stewart Title, are all reputable companies that people should be looking to use. A lot of lawyers have preferences because they've had good experiences working either on getting the policies issued in a timely fashion, dealing with exceptions where we know there's a title issue and trying to solve a workaround, or also in a coverage type thing. So although I think technically most lawyers have to give you the choice, a buyer off the street's not going to have a clue as to which one is better or what they want.
Well, and
just have one.
Yeah, and if I'm a buyer, I'd want to know, hey, who would you recommend based on your experiences on a claim, right?
And so most lawyers, technically have to give you the option of title insuring it or getting an opinion on title, but an opinion on title is not something. It's more expensive because it's more time for the lawyer. There's more cost for searches. It's conditional on a lot of things, and it's subject to a lot of exceptions because if there's not an up-to-date survey, then it's not really worth a whole lot to the buyer. So title insurance replaces that, and I'm a big proponent of it. And I think everybody should purchase it. What it also does cover, going back to your original question, Stephen, is it covers title fraud.
And that's what happened in this particular instance, yeah.
So title fraud, you're more susceptible to title fraud if the home is free and clear, if there's no mortgage. Because what somebody will do is they will walk into a lawyer's office who's not very diligent or maybe isn't on it, and will pass themselves off as the homeowner, take out a new mortgage, take the mortgage funds, and leave the real homeowners with the mortgage debt.
Yeah, that's stuff. You know what? Yeah, that's happening.
Yeah, and people say, "Oh, that happens in Toronto," but we're not that far, and you got to be careful. And so, title insurance will cover title fraud, and
that's the big one, I think.
Yeah, and title insurers, even if you don't have a mortgage, if you bought your home 40 years ago, 30 years ago, before you had title insurance available, and your mortgage is paid off, you can get an existing owner's policy of title insurance to cover anything an up-to-date survey would disclose, although maybe qualified for knowledge of the property for the period of time, like for previous owners anyways, but also just title fraud. And some people are going out and getting it just for that protection, and I wouldn't advise against it, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, and especially if you're at that point in your life where you've you've done a great job paying down your biggest asset, and now you'd like to live out your golden years, and you don't.
The bank comes to sell it out from under you. From a mortgage that you didn't agree to put on.
Yikes. Talk about the knock on the door you don't want. One of them, anyway. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, for that cost, why not? So, okay, you got to give me this one. Give me your funniest, and it can't be something I've done with you. Give me your funniest business story so far.
Oh, without breaching solicitor-client
I was
privilege.
going to say
names.
that.
I mean, I'm not, and
is being a lawyer funny at all? Like, is there any?
Yeah, I mean, we do. We have a lot of laughs. We try to keep it light in the office. For the most part, it can be dealing with other lawyers and trying to keep deals alive, I think, and close deals for clients when all you want to do is pick up the phone and yell and scream and say, like, you're a moron, what are you doing? You have no clue. Come on.
Yeah.
Really.
We all have those moments.
So most of the fun we have is when we hang up the phone and say, would you mind? Like, I'm sorry to bother, but could you please? And we hang up the phone and we say, and there's a lot of, but everybody, pulls to close the deal. And I mean, we've had deals where, to get the deal closed for the day of closing, I will have 4 staff members in a human chain, one down at the bank to hold the door open so they don't close, so we can certify our checks, and one at the bank for the lawyer for the seller to do the same, and then one to print the checks and one to be the runner. And then we're taking pictures of checks and deposit slips, and we'll bend over backwards to make it go if we can make it go. And
I've heard of these things going on.
That's fun. That's fun, and it's also stressful. But you want somebody that takes the deal seriously enough to stress about a closing for you a little bit, I think, is the idea.
Yeah, the one thing I've always learned, and I try to tell my clients this: do not close the Friday before a long weekend. Just don't do it. I remember my funny lawyer story is I had a deal and it was closing the day before a long weekend, and I had planned to leave at noon that day like everybody else, and of course I get the phone call of there's money not here or whatever. So here I am running around in my bathing suit between an RBC branch and then off to a lawyer's office, and they're looking at me like I stole the check, and they're trying to figure it all out. And again, got done, but do not close on a Friday of a long weekend.
So the last Friday in June, the last Friday in July, and the last Friday in August are all not great days, because if something goes wrong and you can't close that day, you will be without a home over the weekend, and that's not good for anybody.
No.
So now that I've had a chance to think about it, I do have one good one for you.
Okay, go for it.
And this happened almost one of my first or second year of practice. I was going to be away for a closing. It was a purchase. And part of my trip involved being out of cell phone range for about 2 hours. We were driving north up through to Quebec, and the best way to get to where we were going was at a cell phone range for 2 hours. So we were in the car, and I left a file with at that time, with the head of the department to close for me. And I got an email just before heading out of range that the deal had closed really early, like 10 to 11 in the morning.
Okay.
I was thrilled. No stress. Sure. That was my biggest stress of that day, was it wasn't going to close, and I didn't want to leave a mess for my boss at the time, and it was going to weigh on me, especially not being able to call and get an update.
And being new to it and everything, yeah.
So, shut off the phone and relaxed, and 2 hours later, back in cell phone range, I had 40 emails. It had closed so early that my client had driven over, got the keys, and gone to the property, and the sellers were still moving out. And instead of talking it out like a reasonable human being, he called the police to have them charged for trespass on the basis that the property was his. And so the police came, from what I understand, and sorted it out, and the sellers moved their stuff out, and he went for a drive and came back, and of course there may have been a little bit of damage to the property on the way out in their haste, or maybe as a revenge for involving the police. But I mean, you're selling a resale home and you're buying a resale home, people should be out on the day of closing, but sometimes if they can't bridge, they're moving out in that same day.
It's a nasty game of dominoes.
You've got to be really careful, and you've got to be patient, and you've got to understand that some people don't have the same appreciation for how a house should be left on a sale. Some people try. And
broom swept is a very relative term.
I mean, yeah. And sometimes you just have to roll with it. Unless you're buying a new home, it's not going to be pristine. And, the agents and the lawyers are available to help if there are serious issues. But whenever I moved into my house, opened the oven, and there was a roasting pan in there, and it must have been 2 weeks old. It must have been the last meal that they cooked and cleaned up. They probably put it in there to show the house weeks before. And then packed everything up and started eating out of cardboard boxes.
Oh, jeez.
And they never found it. And so, you open it up and the oven's a mess, and there's
Was there like a bird sitting in there?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, perfect.
And
Parting gift.
So you throw it out and you clean the oven because it's gross, because you know that if I was moving out, I'd make sure the oven was clean. But, you can't hold everybody to the same standard, unfortunately.
I've never checked the oven before I've left a home.
So
of all the things.
Yeah, right.
The fridge. Check the fridge.
Absolutely.
Right? First thing.
Yeah.
But, wow. Yeah, I can imagine something like that happening.
I mean, and you get people complaining for leaving behind paint cans, right? So sellers will leave behind
I've got tons of those.
half-used paint cans for touch-ups that match all the paint in the house, thinking they're doing the buyers a favor. And then they get buyers in and they say, it was supposed to be empty. They left a bunch of garbage. They had to come back and pick it up. I'm like, come on, guys. Really?
Oh, no.
Like, it's one thing if it's junk. It's another thing if
They're
legitimately trying to help.
Yeah.
Right. But often it's communication.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's, leaving a nice note, congratulations on your new home, and a $10 bottle of wine or some flowers goes a long way to smoothing over some of that stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, last thing. I need your top 5 list to help out your lawyer have a smooth close. Give me a top 5.
Number 1, don't go on vacation the week that your deal is supposed to close or the week before.
Good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That happens a lot, and it's difficult to sign documents, to verify ID, or to deal with issues if somebody is in a different country or hard to reach. So that's a big one. And sometimes people do just because it's already been booked and the closing date that was offered isn't flexible.
And you got flights and stuff,
Yeah.
and you can't move the flight.
Right. But
who are you going to inconvenience? Your vacation or your lawyer? I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, that's right. Thanks. So don't be on vacation during the week before, up to and including the day of closing. Is number 1. Number 2 is make sure that the lawyer has mortgage instructions well ahead of time.
So what's well ahead of time?
I'd love to have mortgage instructions 10 calendar days before closing.
Okay, that's not unreasonable.
Because sometimes what happens is you'll get them and they're like, oh, who's this extra person on the mortgage? And we've already told the other side who's buying, and now we need to add a new person to title, and we need to deal maybe a trust agreement because it's maybe a parent going on to help financing. And it can really, put the dominoes into effect, and the less time we have to deal with that, the more difficult it is to get it all resolved.
Or at least a phone call saying, hey, this is all being done last minute because of whatever, and be ready.
Yeah. Number 3, respond to emails. The best way we can reach clients is by email, because you will send you a list of what we need. And if you can get us that when you can, as soon as you can, that's really helpful. Sometimes it's a lot, but we ask for it all at once so that we're not asking for it in dribs and drabs. Sometimes something comes up where we need something extra that's new that we didn't know about, but we're only asking it not to inconvenience the client, but to close your deal. So, but it's respond.
Funny you say that. Same thing with us for documents, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If we're getting something electronically or whatever, it's sometimes it just goes a different direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get the document you asked for, and then okay, didn't know that, so now we need to ask for this, and it sometimes that happens, right?
Yeah.
So,
number 4 is be available for the meeting with the lawyer a few days before closing. I will stay late, and I have done the weekend meetings when it's been necessary, but there are lawyers that won't, and it's not my preference. I have a young family, and I'd like time with them too.
sure.
Some people think that they can take time off work for a doctor or dentist, but the lawyer has to wait, and it's not important enough to take time off work. And sometimes work's just not flexible enough, and I get that. Like if you're working as a doctor or nurse, you can't step out from the emergency room and pop in and see the lawyer. But it's
Absolutely.
to try and be available during business hours for a meeting, and that would be really helpful. That's 4.
One
Number
more.
5.
This is like your wish list.
What makes
Anyone listening to this is going to have all this ready for you when they come work with you.
Be prepared to ask questions. I want my clients to leave understanding what they've signed.
I like that, yeah.
I take I don't just say sign here, 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 and here, and we'll get you your keys. Everything that's signed is explained, and I want people feeling comfortable when they leave. So if I have a client who says, sorry, I have to ask, I said, don't apologize. If I haven't explained it, then let me. And the big thing is a lot of confusion, upset, or anger can be dealt with at the client meeting when you're reviewing the numbers, reviewing the documents, by asking questions, then staying silent, and then waiting till the closing package arrives, and then having to revisit it. For the most part, I'm not perfect either. The odd time I do make a mistake. I try not to. It's not good for business.
Yeah. It happens.
But it happens. Everybody. No one's perfect, right? So that's why I review the documents. And sometimes we make mistakes. And if you review and you ask questions, then we can resolve that before it closes, and everybody's happier. So, yeah, I don't want somebody that just says, show me where to sign. I want somebody that, is willing to ask questions.
And I think my shameless plug for you is that's why you're here today. I think I've dealt with you personally. I love it when my first time home buyers in particular work with you, and even the investors, for someone to understand and give a legal response to the collateral charge. So I'm a bank, we give our spin, but then the legal spin's important. Any lawyer, it's important if they are the client's asking questions, or they're asking questions, and they work with the person that did the mortgage or the realtor or whoever. So that's an important thing your office does do, and that's why I like my clients working with you guys.
Thanks. Yeah, no, the last thing you want is if somebody says, well, why is this mortgage like this? Say, well, talk to your broker. It's just sign it because it's got to be this way. You have to take the time to explain.
Yeah.
And you don't want to send people back. You want to make everybody in the transaction look good, because it's there are a lot of people involved in closing the house.
Absolutely.
And we're just the last step. Yeah.
Well, Tyler, thanks so much for coming out. It was great to have you. I wanted to have you out to answer some of these questions and give your spin on it, because it's stuff that we run into. People don't know, and again, I'm a bank guy, right? So to give the legal response is fantastic. So if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they reach you?
The best way to get me is probably email. It's my last name.
And respond quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just go to the top 5 list.
HORTIE at Cohenhiley, COHENHIGHLEY.com. You can go to cohenhiley.com website, and you can look me up there, and all my contact information's there. And if you want to call me and can't reach me, you can talk to any of my staff. We've got a great group of people. I have a really bright young associate lawyer, Stuart, and some really good assistants and clerks that really do a lot of the work and make the deals close. So.
Excellent. Now, one last thing, I have to ask this. Can you please sing me the Cohenhiley tune that's on the radio?
I'm afraid that I cannot, on the basis that it would ruin the last hour of really good information.
Oh, no.
It's a great little jingle, and the guy that put it together is really proud of it. It's the same writer of the jingle for African Lion Safari.
Oh, wow! You guys go big or go home, eh?
And so they're really proud of it, and the voice that you hear sometimes, answer the phone. That's Robbie. That's our old receptionist who passed sadly a couple of years ago. But her memory lives on in the commercial, so we think fondly of her. But Cohenhiley, we're always listening, and we're on buses and on the radio all the time, and we do the radio call-in show on
good.
One of the FM channels in town. So the number escapes me. I'm sorry, but we like to advertise, and we do more than just real estate and wills, estates, and corporate, which is what I do. We've got family, personal injury, administrative law, so it's a full service firm. And
so you got all the different stuff in there. Then
we don't do criminal law. So
okay.
If you need me to bail you to jail, I'm not the guy to call.
Don't call you.
Call me. But otherwise, we should be able to help or steer you to somebody that can.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much. It was great having you in. Anyway, folks, until next time, look for our next podcast, probably within the next couple of weeks. And until next time, we'll talk to you then. Thank you. Thanks for listening, everybody. As I said before, if you have any questions around real estate, starting to get into investing, stuff like that, reach out to Tyler and ask a lot of questions. As you can see, he knows his stuff, and he'd be more than glad to help you out. Again, make sure you follow me on both Facebook and Twitter. Same handles for both, RBC Stephen Green. And until next time, talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.